Good morning from London. My name is Vikas Pota, and today I bring to you a conversation regarding the future of philanthropy. As someone who used to run a family foundation, I know some of the many challenges that one has in building, sustaining, and actually having the impact that you so deserve. One of the things that I think is a characteristic of family foundations is the highly personal nature of these organizations. You often have families that have either endowed or are investing their own hard-won wealth in making sure that they do good in the world, and that by its very nature is very personal. So the question that arises is, given the scale of the problem that we face on Earth today, with regards to things like the coronavirus and other such epidemics and challenges, how is it that one person's wealth can actually have the impact that they so desire? Now, one shift has been in teaming up, so in collaborative philanthropy. And today I have with me Naghma Mulla from the Edelgive Foundation that actually pioneers in India a way of actually thinking about collaborative philanthropy. So please welcome Naghma to this conversation. Naghma, welcome.
Hi, Vikas. Hi. Thank you for having me here.
So, Naghma, your foundation that you work for, has built a reputation around collaborative philanthropy and thinking through what does and what doesn't work. I mean, the question that I want to start off with really is this one, which is, how much does collaborative philanthropy differ to a usual understanding of philanthropy? Do you want to try answering that?
Yes, of course. Because with over 7 to 8 years of really doing this and getting my hands down and dirty on individual and collaborative philanthropy, there are some very stark differences. I feel philanthropy is very personal to almost all of us. It's a personal intention. It's a reaction to something that we've been seeing. It's a desire to give back, to feel that one is paying back what one owes to society. But when collaborative philanthropy comes into picture, I think it goes beyond intention. The actions that one has to take to collaborate with others means there is a bit of accommodation of other people, and you put the purpose and the problem at the center for everyone to solve together. And it's not a comfortable experience. So I feel individual philanthropy is great. It's fantastic. It works and it should keep on working. But collaborative philanthropy is messy, has multiple stakeholders, has a lot of potential, and places the problem first and the solution after that.
I mean, it's heartening to see that there are philanthropists who are willing to, for example, subsume their identities and their own preferences to tackling these. Has that been also one of the blockages so far in promoting collaborative philanthropy?
Yes, of course, because and most people will tell you that they want to collaborate even on philanthropy. So, and I truly believe that they believe they want to collaborate. So I have rarely met someone who will tell you that they do not want to collaborate. But in action, it means that it needs accommodation of other people's views. And that's not a very easy action to follow, an intention to really act on. And that's where the roadblocks begin.
I mean, so as someone who used to run a foundation, I'll tell you that actually collaboration is not the issue. It's actually sharing kudos sometimes, is what I found. How does that work?
You are, because see, the primary reason one is coming and sitting with 5 other people and trying to crack a problem even in the first meeting is because there is a common view or a common reaction to something. Whether it's on education or women or violence, there are people who are worried about it and say, all right, this is the wealth I want to invest, and let's look at how we can do bigger than going solo about it. So there is this kinship that is developed, but it's what happens after that first conversation that actually determines everything about whether this will become a collaborative, this will work as a collaborative, or whether that will succeed as a collaborative. So yes, it's just a starting point.
And so in the journey of the Edelgive Foundation, where did you make the switch from being the philanthropic institution for a very successful financial services business in India to actually championing the collaborative approach? What was the incidents that made you think like that?
So there were two, three things, Vikas. Early in 2014, Maharashtra in India was struck by a very bad drought, and we saw how the problem was much bigger than any of us could solve. We could pay for tankers, we could pay for any, we could have hundreds of NGOs out there, but the magnitude of the problem was too large, and it needed a more systemic approach beyond the next rain coming. And that kind of shook us a little bit. The second is when the government of Maharashtra actually approached us and said that we want to solve the problem at a state level. Will you want to help us? And when we just looked at the problem, the magnitude was such. Even if we were well-intentioned, it would take us many, many more years than it would take us to go with someone who had an alternative experience. And that provoked us into beginning to thinking. But what we did next is, Vikas, we designed for it. Which is what I'm going to even speak about later, that it's not just the intention to sit on the table and crack a problem together. One has to design and one has to evolve one's own systems and the system of this conversation to accommodate for collaboration.
I mean, that leads me to my next set of questions, which is, how do you start a collaboration? And, what are the factors that influence the decision to do so between philanthropic institutions?
Yeah, that's a very important question, because I also believe that everything doesn't have to need collaborative philanthropy. Some people should go solo because they're not cut out for collaborative philanthropy, and that's fine because it takes all to make the world. But the problem and the magnitude of the problem should be such that it makes sense for people to come together. The people on the table have to be such that have complementary skills, complementary understandings, so that they're adding to this conversation, adding to the design of this solution, and not just becoming each other's echo chambers. In fact, a robust diversity on a table, not a disruptive diversity, a robust diversity which is really intending to do something, has to be placed. So that's actually the beginning of it. And what I said earlier, the intention to design to have many more people join us, and people leave whenever they want. See, the entire purpose of a collaboration is that no one change could shake it up. Partners could come and go, but the collaboration could stay, because that's what you're building for, and that needs purposeful design. So I think these couple of things in the beginning have to be considered, and if we are not up to it, if that's not working out, it's actually better to not go and get ourselves all to try to promote something that's not going to happen.
I mean, so when I think about this live stream, and I'm really grateful to you for taking part, I often think in terms of, well, what would be, I think in 5 steps, what would be the 5 steps that that are also known as critical success factors to make collaboratives like this work? It'd be useful to go say, number 1 is this, number 2 is that, so that you understand what that is. Can you take me through what you think these 5 critical steps are?
Yes, and I've actually jotted it down because I thought it's a brilliant question. The number 1 thing I think, Vikas, is a core group that is extremely committed, and also a secretariat that is extremely committed. And this secretariat and the core group have to own the entire mission. The mission is much bigger. It goes beyond years, and it has to be a robust group that wants to engage, wants to keep at it, because in the longer journey of the collaborative, there are going to be some horrible years, some massive failures, and there has to be a core group that is strong enough to keep eyes right up front. Look at what is happening during the COVID crisis across the world. It's actually deciding what's being made and what's being broken, because at this time your collaboratives are also enduring, and it's an endurance test. So number 1 is a core, very committed group and secretariat. Number 2 is defining the problem very, very clearly. What is the problem? What is the purpose of this collaborative? And whether it is the core group or someone at the periphery or someone who's a very distant stakeholders, the purpose has to be crystal clear, because at no time should there be confusion about what we're really coming to do. Number 3 is role clarity. Who is coming in for what? There cannot be any misunderstanding on roles, I feel, and on ownerships and accountability and responsibility have to go hand in hand. That clarity goes a really long way through messy situations. The fourth one would be that everyone who is in the understanding that collaborative means giving away of power. When we are solo, the entire power is in our hands. We get to decide, we get to reroute, whatever we want to do. But in a collaborative, you have to accommodate for views that you may not agree to, but that may be the popular belief, and one has to give. So somebody's got to give, and we have to be ready to do it when our turn comes. And the fifth one is what has worked for Edelgive as a biggest lesson, is a very, very strong back end, which means your processes have to be well defined and structured, transparent. Stakeholders have to be able to see whether it is about where the money is or who's managing or operating what. The operationality of it has to be very clean, so that it again, you're not spending unnecessary time on fixing what doesn't need to break at all. And I think these 5 things have helped us stand the test of time in the many collaboratives that we run always.
I mean, so that leads me to this question, which is, when should one not collaborate?
I think a lot of times, everyone's not ready for a collaborative, whether one is an institution or one is an individual. There is a journey one needs to take, or an understanding that one needs to have that there is a learning process. If we are sure that we know what the answer is, and if we're sure that we know what direction it needs to take, we might as well go solo, because it's just simpler. It's no angst to anyone. That's number one. The other is, if I'm not ready to invest time in learning, so I may be a new philanthropist, I may be a philanthropist who doesn't understand the problem or the solution, but then I must give myself 2 to 3 years to hear in, to listen, to absorb, watch mistakes happen without criticism or without, obviously there will be a robust discussion, but a willingness to learn has to be there. If we're already sure we're okay, we should just go ahead and do what it takes, because collaboratives are messy, they are painful, but we all know why we're doing it, because the cause and the solution is really worth it.
I mean, so Naghma, you say that you're part of some collaboratives. Can you give us some examples of the kind of things that you're trying to cover through these collaboratives? I know, for example, that you have one on education, and because a lot of those that are watching this live stream on whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, are from the education sphere, can you elaborate on that one a little bit more than the others, please?
Yes, of course, and you will see that a lot of principles that I have spoken of actually come from that experience massively. The education project that we run in the large state of Maharashtra actually has 7 funders right now, and all of them completely in agreement that we're going to look at the state as a unit and not look at individual schools and projects as our own personal mission. So these 7 funders have come together. Edelgive is the anchor funder, the risk officer, the secretariat. That's what we do. And we are also the mouthpiece with the government. We interact with the government, so their voice is also heard. And then there is a cluster of organizations, implementing partners, that are ensuring that this project is then delivered in 7 districts of Maharashtra. And what we ensured through this process, Vikas, is then there is a clear messaging in the front end. So people who join in as funders know what to expect. We have an annual general meeting where we put all the stakeholders together. We talk about problems first. We have quarterly meetings to discuss issues. So there is complete transparency where all of them are on the same page almost at all times. There is a government interface to hear their voice. And there's the implementing partners also. We curate learning journeys with each other. We ensure they speak to each other. And we ensure there is no massive upset about any drawbacks or any failures that might have been encountered. So we allow for that discussion to happen. Along with all of this, at the back end, there was a system that was developed first, whether it was how the money moves or how regulation will be maintained, how audits will be done, simple, boring stuff that was cleaned and put up first before money even hit our accounts, because that was very, very important to us. Because the structure was very clear, because people knew what we were doing, we could move that program. It started at 25,000 children in the first month. within a year and a half, we grow to 1.5 million children. And that's
Wow.
the way to escalate the pilot, because it was just about, now, we've tested a cluster and now we just multiply. And we're seeing a phenomenal growth for this project as well.
And do all the 7 funders put in the same amount of money? And are they as involved as each other, or does that flex?
No, that definitely flexes. And that's what I meant by the stakeholders cannot be echo chambers of each other. There have to be, if you see the 7 funders, there are corporates, foreign foundations, Indian foundations, the three clusters, and then there is the government. So we're talking about entities that are looking at the problem from very different lenses. What they're really wanting to, they're looking at the problem of learning outcomes of children in Maharashtra and the desire to solve for it. So their questions are different. The level of due diligence they expect is different. The level of monitoring they want is different. We've standardized it to the most robust form so we can appease all of them, so that we never have to modify for each one. But that's our job. That's what we've done it as a secretariat. So the steering group, or the funders group, is very intentionally diverse, and that's worked brilliantly for us because the feedback is also diverse. It just helps us grow.
And so you've talked about the Education Collaborative. Tell us, I know during COVID, you've actually put in place another collaborative. Tell us a little bit about that, because that seems to be responding to a problem here and now.
Yes. There is a phenomenal problem that India has, had to combat with, which nobody really anticipated. So when COVID struck India, migrants who were out of work in urban areas were no longer getting any kind of remuneration, and it became too costly to stay here. And there was no travel or available, so they started walking. So we saw millions of migrants with their families walk like miles, hundreds of miles to get home. But what this has done is it has pushed a huge generation of migrant laborers back into poverty. And at that time, one of our grantees, Jan Sahas, who was operating, and they quickly mobilized themselves, partnered with 50 other NGOs on the ground, and could reach out to 1.5 million migrant workers, Vikas, at different important points, which is on highways, to deliver food, or in their source, or in their places of destination. But what this did is, in the 3 months of observing and working, gave us an idea of how we need to plug these migrants back into employment, plug these migrants back into entitlements over the next 3 to 5 years. And we have to credit Jan Sahas as the originator of the idea and the design. They did really the hard work around it. They came to us as people who know how to manage collaborations, who can talk to stakeholders, podcast it. And that's how this partnership began. And the ambition of this partnership, which is Migrants Resilience Collaborative, is that in the next 5 years, we will reach out to 10 million workers and ensure at least 60% of them are actually plugged into social services and have their employment back. And the rest of the 40% also will have different levels of relief. But now this plan is much huger than anything that Edelgive could have done alone, or Jan Sahas could have done alone. And it's going to involve at least 100 NGOs on field in India, operating out of 100 districts. So we're talking about massive scale, and we're designing for that scale.
So I assume you would agree with the statement that the future of philanthropy lies in collaboration. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, because the future of the problem is unseen. We are facing a future where we really don't know whether COVID-19 is the last crisis in the world. It doesn't seem to be like it. When the crisis is much bigger than an individual human life, the solution will have to be bigger than all of us. And that's why I think collaborative philanthropy is the need of the hour and the need of the future as well.
Well, Naghma, thank you so much for sharing your insights into collaborative philanthropy and what it takes to make it a success. I actually owe you a separate vote of thanks, as well as a foundation, to you and your colleagues for partnering on World Education Week, which is coming up very shortly. And I know that in India, there are a number of schools that are from your granting portfolio that have actually come through to showcase their expertise. Do you want to say a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of maybe the reaction in India for World Education Week and what these schools are going to be doing?
Yes, absolutely. So, because when we went and we spoke to the schools and we spoke to the ecosystems, one is we thought that they will be interested, but the joy that we are seeing, the excitement, the personal notes that I'm getting, to thank us for connecting them to something like this, they're thinking it's a moment of pride for them to be acknowledged. We're talking community of teachers who are sitting in very humble places with Wi-Fi and data issues, never having taught online before, really worried and trying to do their best. And for them, this has been almost such a joyous and a momentous occasion because it feels like somebody just patted their back and the event is not even done with. So what I'm seeing is very heartening because it's given hope and it's given joy and it's given so much excitement in within schools and teachers. And I think somewhere we started getting questions from other schools as well. But I think for now, pulling off this one, I think I want to congratulate you for even designing for something so big for a community that really deserves so much more appreciation than they're getting. And we're excited. Even Edelgive as a team is super kicked up for the week that is going to come.
Well, once again, thank you so much. And I look forward to hosting you again on this live stream in the future to talk about other subjects.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today, Naghma. And
Thank
wish
you so
you
much. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.